whatnot. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, the link will be down below at the Sportify Show. And if you haven't followed us on Facebook, the Sportify Show. And let's get this Hall of Famer interview in the wraps. All right. You got any questions, Crash Love, for him? Yeah, I had to mute your butt. All right.
There we go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, wait, it's your phone messing up, bro. Okay, go ahead. Hold on. Better?
Nothing there.
There we go.
I don't know. Does it seem better?
There we go. Yeah, that's better. You're just kind of loud. Hold on, let me turn it down. Go ahead.
Okay. So what was it like fighting back then for the big time publicity?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that totally. What was it like?
What was it like fighting back
before
then?
The publicity?
It was really totally different. The rule sets were different. Naturally, the venues were different because we fought in barns, clearings in the wood, old garages. You know, wherever we could find a spot, we would fight. There was never a ring. We never actually fought in rings. You know, at the very best we'd have hay bales set up around in a square or a circle and fight that way. It was almost like back in the 1900s, early 1900s. You know, when they had Fitzsimmons and you know, some of the other greats there. In the sense that we couldn't really get much notice on it. Like we'd say, okay, you know, are you going to be available for a fight in a 10-day span? They give us 10 days. We'd commit to it. Then we'd usually find out within 2 days, okay, here's where it's going to be. Show up. We'd show up and we'd all fight. There'd be typically anywhere from 3 to 4 fights to as many as 9 or 10 fights.
Dope. Yeah, I always say bare knuckles is like it started in Gladiator's time. Like you really couldn't promote it and all that. But
no.
I was surprised it lasts that long without being actually where it is today, where it's all over.
Oh yeah,
like,
now
they
there's
legalized
millions
it.
and
It's
awesome.
crazy. Yeah, but I got one question. What drew you to bare knuckle boxing? How does your journey in the sports begin? Like, how was it?
My journey began when I was about 8 years old. I had an older brother who was 10 years older than me, who was welterweight boxing champ of the Marine Corps, of which I ended up in the Marine Corps too. But he'd come home on leave and he'd say he wanted to help me, for lack of a better term. He actually just beat the shit out of me. So I fought with him for a while. I went into the Marine Corps, didn't really do any fighting in there except for a couple smokers and stuff. After I got back from Vietnam, got out of the Marine Corps, then I went back into boxing a little bit, did a little amateur boxing, turned pro eventually. Wasn't too enthralled with the money, with anything actually, with the pro fighting. And a guy had mentioned to me, hey, and there's some opportunities if you're interested because we like your style. Would you be interested in doing some bare knuckle? I said, that's mostly what I've done in my life anyway, you know, with street fighting type of stuff and stuff like that. So got invited to do it, and I kind of just got hooked on it.
Nice. Crash Love.
I mean, this is one question that kind of went through my head. Do you ever like I know like boxing, like the ring boxing was like kind of more of a bigger thing back then. Do you ever just like hit like the age champ in your weight class? You're like, oh, that's national champ, and be like, man, I could have whipped that guy.
I fought some good guys. I sparred with a few great guys. I did a little, if this is what you're asking, again, it broke up a little bit, but I did a lot of sparring with Vito Antifermo, former middleweight. I sparred with Larry Holmes for a while. I did one round with Joe Frazier. I wouldn't do any more. Love Joe Frazier, but the guy was an animal, man. At least Larry, when he hurt you, he'd back off a little bit, say, you okay? You know? Joe was he was a beast, a gentleman, but a beast. I got to spend a lot of time with guys like that.
So yeah, it sounds like you fight with the greatest back then. I was surprised you should have got more recognition than what you did back then.
Well, we weren't expecting them back then. I mean, again, there was no publicity or anything. Naturally, publicity was something that was
Yeah.
bad for you, so they kept
Yeah.
it quiet and stuff. But I'd say most of the guys were doing it because they loved the sport. Maybe 50%, 60% just loved bare knuckle sport. The other 40% were just guys looking to make a few bucks, and I mean that's all we
Yeah.
got really was a few bucks. I think the biggest payday that I can remember, and we're talking a long, long time ago now, was about $125. So
That
even
gone
then, that
long.
wasn't a lot of money. It was
Yeah.
close to a week's salary maybe or something like that back then. But that's all
Yeah.
it was. So you
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah. Just fighting with the greats back then,
Mhm.
regardless if they are known before or
Yeah,
not.
yeah. They
Thank
may not
you.
have been known in Ring Magazine, but
Thank you.
they were well known within our own community.
Yeah.
And
Um.
again,
Yeah.
most of us never used our own names anyway and stuff. So I could rattle off a bunch of names, you probably wouldn't recognize any of them.
I recognize one name, Joe Frazier, for some reason. I don't know where, but yeah.
Yeah, I heard that name somewhere.
Joe Frazier.
Yeah. Bare
Yeah, Joe
knuckle.
Frazier. He's one of
Yeah.
the black boxers that was basically arrested for not trying to go to war.
Yeah, yep, Holly,
Mm.
yep. That's one of my big regrets in life was I never
Yeah, he
got
was
to meet Holly.
one of our champions.
Oh my God. Yep.
Yep.
Crazy.
And honestly,
Yeah.
that would have been a great fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the guys
Um.
today that we've got in bare
That
knuckle,
would have been a great fight. That
most
everybody.
of them. Oh yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Most of them came
But
out of the UFC, and there were some real beasts
mm,
there that could have actually made the difference, gone into regular boxing or bare knuckle in the beginning, and probably been even greater.
yeah. Yeah. I got another question. Bare knuckle is known for its intensity and danger. What kept you motivated through the toughest moment of your career? Because
Good
if they
looking.
catch you, like I heard, if they catch you, they throw you in jail or something, or fine you. Back in the day, what kept you motivated and be discreet about it?
Again, well, too, we all knew we had the same investment in it, so it wasn't going to be
Yeah.
like one guy was going to try to screw it up for everybody else and run his mouth,
Yeah.
because then you'd have 20 guys coming after him, and he may never
Yeah.
be seen again, after some shit like that. But again, it goes back to the love of the sport, and we had respect for one another. We beat the living shit out of each other, but afterwards, I mean, probably 8 out of 10 times we'd all go out. The group of fighters, whether it was 6, 8, 10, 12 guys that night, we'd all go out for drinks afterwards together as a group.
Oh,
You know,
it was,
I mean, it was just
yeah.
that camaraderie where we knew we had to have each other's backs, or we'd all be in deep shit.
Yeah. Got another question, Crash Love?
But,
All right. All
uh,
right. All right.
with as far as like the rules, what would you say they're more more they were more laid back then, or they're more tight now? If you
It was a,
keeping up with the rules and
yeah, it was a little different than like the BKFC rules today. I
Mm.
like what they've done with BKFC and the rules, but back then with us, it was basically just boxing with no gloves. That's all it was. Where BKFC, you can hit and hold, you can get a guy in a semi headlock and pound his face and shit like that. We couldn't do that. So it was more just pure boxing. But again, not even wraps. So we didn't even have wraps back then. It was pure bare everything. You could fight in a t-shirt, jeans, it didn't matter.
right.
You know.
Irish boxing.
Nice, nice.
He's talking about them Irish boxing.
Can you describe? Can you describe a fight that truly
General.
defined your legacy or pushed you to your physical and mental limit?
Uh, yeah, and unfortunately, it was probably my very last fight. I
Mm,
I was fighting this again. I can't even remember the kid's name, but he was a lumberjack from upstate New York, and
mm,
tough kid. And but we started out, and I'm doing real well against him, popping him with some good jabs, a couple rights, and stuff like that. Didn't hurt him bad, but I felt okay. I got control of this. And then he caught me with uh, a hook to the temple. And I went down, and they said I got up at 6. I don't remember getting up naturally. And then when I got up, I guess he put me back down, and I was out. The next thing I remember was watching my mouthpiece being pulled out and blood running back down on my face. And I said, "Oh, this ain't good. Something went wrong here." So they got me up
mm.
and they put me on a hay bale. And the guy who was reffing said, "How you doing, Mort?" He didn't say Mort, but what my name was going by then. He said, "How you doing?" I said, "Pretty good." I said, "But that guy, you got to arrest him. You got to do something." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, that son of a bitch hit me with a brick. He had a brick in his hand.
Ooh.
He hit me so hard that my mind saw a brick in his hand. The doctor explained it to me later. Anyway, the doctor also explained to me, he said, "Hey, Mort, you know what happens when you get knocked out?" "Uh, Not really, He said, "Well, you're going to go through personality changes," he says, "and also you lose 2 to 3 points of your IQ." I started
Ooh,
adding up
wait.
all the times I've been knocked out, and I said, "Holy shit, I'm going to be in a hole soon." So that was my last fight.
Man, what year was that?
That would have been 1976, I believe. 76, yeah.
Oh, so
Long before you
how
guys
long
were
ago?
born, right?
Yeah, definitely. How long were you in it for?
How long? I had my first bare knuckle fight in 73, so I was only in it for a little over 3 years, I'd say.
Hmm. That's a long. Did they have like extra precaution like they do today? Medical
No,
weigh-ins?
no, no. There was no
Oh,
weigh-ins. You said what your weight was. They wrote it down on a piece of paper, and there wasn't actual true weight classes. It was in the lower weights, it was 10 pounds, and as you got up to like middleweight, it was 15-pound increments. And it was all
okay.
on an honor system, basically.
So basically, it's not like some fights. Like I have seen, like it doesn't matter about weight. If you have beef with them, settle in the whatever.
Yeah, like street
Yeah,
beefs or yeah, stuff like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
No, this wasn't that. This wasn't that, but again, it wasn't overly structured either.
yeah. So basically, you could have like your sugar could be low, and then if you get knocked out, you
Oh,
knocked out. Like
yep. Yep.
basically,
Yeah, you could be running a fever of 104. Nobody would know. I mean, it was sad but true. It's the way
yeah,
it
that's
was. And we all
crazy.
knew it. So it wasn't like it was an unfair advantage to one guy or the other.
Yeah. You got any more questions, Crash Love?
What was your most memorable fight other than your last one?
Other than the last one was one, let's see, probably the next one was a guy who was actually 6'4", and at the time
Mm,
I was pushing it to be 5'10". And the first 3 rounds or so, I mean, he was killing me with jabs and stuff. And we didn't have true coaches, but I had a corner. He said, "Man, you, you got to learn to come under those jabs. You're catching everyone with your face." So uh, I ended up. I'll tell you another story after this. It brings it to mind. Was I ended up listening to him, and I finally learned to duck him. And as I ducked him, I'd come in with a uppercut to the solar plexus, and that tends to shorten tall guys.
Ooh,
So every time I started doing that, I saw he was coming
right.
down. So then I got him when he started coming down. I brought a left hook in, and after getting, I mean, honestly, beat bad for better than 3 rounds, I ended up knocking him out, which was, again, this was a guy who had 6 inches on me, and height and probably more than that in reach.
Yeah, it's
Right.
crazy.
And I heard he was
Question.
a pro with a.
So
Go ahead. No, I said I heard he had a pro record at
I
the
was probably
time
what?
of 17-2 or something like that.
Mm.
That
So
same guy.
was bare knuckle not pro? It's just an underground street fight back then.
No, there was no pro, no amateur,
It was
and
just
what we
basically like
did now.
street beef. It's basically
Yep.
like street beef type.
Street beef without all the video cameras. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's different. How
That's
you
cool.
think the world changed since back then with sports? Like you think it's a great overall, or you think it's
I think the
um
sport's come a long way, and again, I credit my time with Dave Feldman and BKFC. I worked with them from the very first fight in Cheyenne, Wyoming, up through BKFC
mm,
10 before I got out of it and stuff. And just to bring it to the forefront, number one, proving that it's actually safer than regular boxing, and I believe that 100% with my heart that it's safer uh, than regular boxing. And the fighters are now getting some decent money for it. I think the money will continue to grow. I think that's been some huge, huge things for it right there. And getting it out there in front of the world. Again, we had to hide, and it's so great to see these
yeah.
guys get in front of the camera and show their stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like they're actually on pay-per-view or what's that TV thing
Triller
DAZN.
and Dazen, that the zone, whatever.
Yeah. Basically it's on ESPN if you want to think about it.
Yeah, really. I mean,
That's
the views they get are
I'm
phenomenal.
like, yeah. We had a couple bare knuckle people on here and all that. Like Esteban Rodriguez, Nikki Bars, almost had right, Christina
Christine Ferreira,
Ferreira,
I know
almost.
Christine very, very well. We're great friends. I was with her at the very first one, and
Nice.
she's going to be around a while.
Yeah, she is.
Mhm.
Yeah, I almost had her on here, but she was busy. But we both live in Vegas, so it's like the
Yeah.
sports promotion is very good down here. I noticed,
Oh my God,
especially
yeah.
with that, especially with that power slap. I don't know what's with that one, but yeah, that's
I'm
just
sorry,
a
I can't
whole.
get into that one. I mean, I love a lot of shit, but that one just hasn't caught on in my mind yet.
Me either. I
Somebody's
rather
slapping
watch.
at me. I don't care if it was a closed fist or an open one. I'm gonna put my hands
That's
up.
why yeah. Then they say anybody could join, regardless if you're pro or AMI or not. Like if you think you could take a hit, I
That's
wouldn't.
the key.
Like
It's not how hard you can hit, because anybody can hit hard if they're
yeah.
not being blocked. Yeah.
Since I'm an expert in MMA, my reaction be tackling them down and beat them up. I can't let
Yeah.
nobody just slap me and not react.
I'm
I
coming
don't know
back
how they
after
could
you,
do it.
brother. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know how they could do that. Never got caught onto
No,
that. I'd
obviously
rather
they're not
watch
people they haven't grown up in a fight game where you're attuned to that. Somebody swinging at you, you're going to block and you're going to counter. That's
yeah.
just the way it is. So these people are very disciplined, I guess, in what they do. But again, that ain't me.
Yeah. They got good medical team in the background. They do blood pressure checks before they did. It's all regulated. But I never got caught down like you never did. I rather watch like those brawl, like little underground type, like redneck brawl or
Oh
about
yeah, some of them,
time.
some of them I've watched pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah,
had a lot of redneck brawl. And they
it's
don't
easy to pick
train.
out.
That's the crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
It's easy to.
unorthodox, but
Yeah, some of them guys have no style, but they got heart and they get some power. You know.
yeah, we had one. His name is Kentucky Wildman. That was his first fight ever. He's like 50, 60 years old. And it looked like he was about to lose. And then out of nowhere, he does a backhand, knocks this 20
A
something
backhand,
years old. Yeah, he did a backhand close fist with a glove.
a spinning.
And yeah,
Was
he
it?
was like going like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, he went like that, and the backhand it hit him right here. I guess it was pretty hard to the point he broke his hand and knocked the guy out, and he won that fight. I'm
Oh,
like, stuff like that. It's like unorthodox, but it's entertaining at the same
oh
time.
yeah,
But so
absolutely.
it
Hmm.
keeps viewers in their seat because you don't know what happens. It's like NASCAR sometimes. It'd be boring until you see it crash.
Yep. That's what we're all looking for. It's like back in the Tough Man days too, and guys like Butterbean. I know Butterbean pretty well, and
Ooh,
there's some phenomenal guys who fought in that Tough Man. I got my ass kicked in it the one time I did it, because I ended up fighting a guy who had 50 pounds on me, at the time, and it's tough to compete against. He's only got to hit you
yeah.
once.
I was gonna do those tough man things, but they're the closest one's Wyoming. But they said since I was already amateur fighter at MMA, I on the application they said I wanted. That's why I
Uh,
overqualified. That's why I overqualified for I'm not bare knuckle. Redneck brawl because I won too many. But it was
okay.
but it was not precinct, so it's not on record. So I could have lied to him if I wanted to, but I chose to
Which
tell the
most
truth.
guys did. I know some of them, you could tell by watching, some of them guys have been pros.
Yeah, so but I told them I'm like I shouldn't overqualify because I haven't fought in a match in 10 years. But they said since I won 15 out of 25 in my debut days, younger days, I
Hmm.
overqualified for Redneck Brawl or all these promotions they have. That's why I choose Street Beef because it's technically not a pro or ami fight. It's basically a street fight, and they
Yep.
don't really
Hmm.
care as long as they don't show your amateur record on file or on these websites, you should be good. And mine doesn't.
That's the way it should be. Yep. That's the way it was back in Burnout. They didn't even ask if how many fights you'd had, if you're pro or, because basically you were invited.
Yeah, and
The
I was
majority of them
invited
were
to the group.
invited, and I may have known a guy and said, "Hey, why don't you invite this guy in and stuff?" But everybody was invited
Yeah, it's
because you had to
just
be
crazy.
vetted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I'm at the end of the day, I'm just human. I'm just you still got to train at the end of the day. What doesn't
Yep.
matter what sport.
Hmm.
Um, Crash Love, since you're muted, you got any more questions before we wrap it up?
Now that I'm back, and I'm sorry, I have family that and come down and whatnot. But as far as training regimens, what was your training regimens like back then?
Back then, I always loved running, so my cardio was never a real issue. Um, I did a lot of sparring with gloves on, unfortunately, because that's the
Yeah.
only way they let us do it in the gym that I was fighting out of at the time. And I would do an average of, I'd say 30 to 35 rounds a week sparring, whether I was training for a fight or not training for a fight.
Mhm.
We'd still do at least that many rounds of sparring every week. And other than that, it was your typical, a lot of bag work.
Okay. Okay.
Dope, dope.
What was some of your
Sparring being the
favorite?
key. My,
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I said, what was your favorite? Uh, pretty much your favorite routines.
Routines.
Yeah.
One of them that I like to do to really push myself and the guys that I've worked with and trained on is something I call a 30-30-30. So for a
Hmm.
3 minute round, for the first 30 seconds, they would just do like a 1-2 on the bag, 1-2, but fast, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, and hitting hard. I wouldn't let them dog it.
Hmm.
The second 30 seconds would be this just the 1-2, but raising the feet up, bringing your knees up to your hands almost. All right. Then the third 30 seconds was just power punches, no finesse, no nothing, just pounding that bag as hard as you can. So that was a minute and a half, then you'd repeat it for another minute and a half. And if you could do 3 30-30-30 rounds, you got a good workout in.
Yeah, I
Probably
know
the
I'm
hardest
probably,
that.
thing. If a guy pushes and you make him push it, that's one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah, I know
I'm
that.
probably gonna try that.
Yeah, I know that stuff. That's like
I'm
like
just like,
did push-ups, did push-up, did the speed bag, and did running.
Yep. There's so many different combinations, right, that you can do with that. They'll kill you, man. But
Yeah.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta have a good lungs at the end of the day for those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you take and do some, okay, do a 5 punch combination. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, and see how many of them they can get in 1 minute.
Ooh.
And they think, man, that was bad. All right, well that's good. Now rest for a minute. You got to do it again, but you got to beat that by at least 3 combos. And
Mm, yeah. I got one more question before we wrap it up. What does being inducted into the Hall of Fame mean to you personally and professionally? Like,
Mm.
how did it
I
feel?
mean, it means everything. For one reason, I was inducted with a kid named Gary Grant, who's also in the Karate Hall of Fame. And Gary's the guy who designed and built the squared circle. And I've known Gary since he was like 12 years old. So we were inducted together. That's probably one of the biggest thrills for me is be inducted with him. I was also inducted with some great guys like Arnold Adams from Chicago, who was a BKFC heavyweight champ at the time and a very
Hmm.
good friend of mine. He's making a comeback here in July. He'll be fighting on BKFC card again. But just somebody recognizing the effort that you put in over the years. Did I expect anything like that? Hell no. But just to be recognized for the effort you put in, the love you've given the sport and stuff like that, and that means everything to me.
Right.
Somebody saw, somebody appreciated what I've done with the sport, not for it necessarily, but with the sport. Just to be a small part of it's huge.
Right.
Nice, nice. Yeah, you should get what's his name? Butterball. Is that did I say
Butterbean,
his name correct?
Better.
Yeah, you should
Eric, yeah.
try to get him on the show. See if he's
Eric,
interested.
Eric is a phenomenal guy. I know he would go on the show. He's just that kind of guy, just working a schedule out with him and stuff. But I'll tell you
Yeah,
what,
yeah, yeah.
the, the guy's a phenomenon. To look at him and to watch him it's two different worlds. You look at
That's
the
what
guy and like he will
I
say,
lie.
people used to look at me and they'd laugh, till I had landed my first punch on the other guy. The guy is a beast.
Yeah, it's like I could sit here all day just talk about the old history of sports, but we on the time crunch, so yeah. But yeah, I would love to have him on the show. Just send him a message, and I'll give you the time and I mean the date where it's our next available. It's not going to be until August, but so he can figure out something ahead of time.
He'd be the biggest, and I don't, no pun intended, the biggest guy you probably had on the show. He's phenomenal.
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everybody loves him. I don't care who you are. You gotta love him.
yeah, yeah. Well, I can't wait for that interview when it happens.
All
But
right.
yeah, thank you for being on the show,
My pleasure.
Goldsmith. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
I'll do that. When's it on? When's it gonna show?
It's gonna be on Tuesday, but
Tuesday.
tell everybody where they can find you, like your social media links or and all that,
Yeah,
so they
you
can
got it.
talk to you. All right.
Take
Well,
care,
yeah.
guys. Great meeting you both.
All right. This is it. This is Spotify
You
show. You
heard?
heard.
You heard?
Peace.